Welcome to The Miracle You, guiding you on the journey towards finding passion and purpose and how to discover, create, and live a life by your design. Whether your success has been plentiful or your missed opportunities have been overwhelming, we can help you become a more empowered, masterful person and show you how to share your gift with the world. It's time to inspire change from within with the host of The Miracle You, Vince Kramer.
Hello, imagination. I'm Vince Kramer, your host, and welcome to The Miracle You, where you learn about the magic of living your life by finding the example in real life. One of the most important things that I want to share with the imagination, and one of the reasons I brought The Miracle You to you, is because I know that so many of us live by rules that have been given to us from society, that's been given to us from our parents, from our gender, from school. So much has come together to kind of mold us into and shape us and keep us in a direction that the outside believes we should follow. Today's guest really has been instrumental in bringing some scientific research and bringing her knowledge and understanding of the corporate world from a place of starting out purely in the masculine-run business world into working her way up rapidly through the chain of command to a place where she was experiencing the masculine run businesses, the masculine run corporations in a way that she began to understand that bringing scientific principles, bringing information about understanding who you are and how you can show up in a world in a way that will make a difference, to bring that to women around the world to help them step into their divine missions, into their divine intents of running some of the largest corporations in the world. So I want you to really take the time and listen to what this guest is sharing and understanding that the rules are meant to be broken. The rules are just handed down from time to time. And now it's time to make your own rules and live your life your way. Hello, I'm with Annette Comer today. Annette is a best-selling author, founder of the world's greatest women academy, and recipient of the coveted Women of the Year from the National Association of Professional Women. Annette is a global leadership mentor that teaches driven women how to become competent, generous, disciplined leaders of today and tomorrow. Her no-nonsense approach is rich from knowledge from science-based research studies, as well as her own playbook across a variety of businesses. Her clients become better versions of themselves as they take their careers and businesses to the next level. After 20 years in a variety of corporate management positions and having secured 2 patents, she left corporate America to put her skills full-time toward being an entrepreneur. Annette Comer, are you ready to share the miracle of you with the imagination?
I am. Let's get going. Absolutely.
Excellent. It is so good to have you here today. I've been planning on having you on the podcast for a long time, and it was great that just in one day we put it all together. So I'm so excited that you're here.
Get out of our way, Vince. Here we come, right?
All right. We were just talking before we started to record the podcast for the imagination. We were talking about being driven, and Annette is one of those driven people. So I'd really like you to share, Annette, a little bit more about you, because there's so much more to you than what I read in the bio.
All right. I'll be happy to, Vince. Let's see. Let's do a couple of different dimensions. That's probably the best way to do it. Always the easy part is to talk about the educational front, which always gives you an indication of how your thinking has been trained. So for me, I got my undergrad in mechanical engineering. Think about that in terms of back then and today, not many women in that field. So pretty much been in a man's world most of my life in terms of my career in businesses. And then I went on and did an executive global MBA where I traveled around the world studying at 5 different universities around the world. And which leads to the personal side of me, who has been kind of a gypsy at heart, that I've traveled all over the world exploring different cultures. And what I found is, we are all so much the same in so many ways. The things we strive for are really not that different. Might have a different language. We might cook spaghetti a different way, but the things that we want for our lives, for our children, for our health, for all those are very similar. And then on the spiritual front, I am a strong Christian and am very aware of how that plays into my life on a daily basis. I have a strong intuitive side, so I listen to that a lot. And you can say it's driven by the universe, the Holy Spirit, whatever your beliefs are. But most people don't stop long enough to listen to that. And I find that I try to make time to stop and listen to that. Sometimes it's not very comfortable because it tells me things I really don't want to hear. But we listen anyway. Another thing about me is I am a health nut. I take my health very seriously. I have had times in my life when I've been very sick, very early in my life, and almost lost my life a couple of times. So I'm very serious about that gift that is given to me of good health and what it provides the ability for me to do. And so I eat really well. I exercise. I take good care of myself. I'm married for 30 some years. I don't know, 33, I guess. No children, which is okay. My businesses were my children as I moved through my decades of my life.
Well, let me ask you this. As you know, part of Imagine Miracles, we talk about your divine intent or what your mission is. And we believe that everything that's happened throughout your life it actually molds itself into you living the mission that you're here for. So how do all those things kind of wrap up into the divine intent that you're living?
It's interesting how, if you can look back at what's unfolded in your life and look at where you are at this point, the wisdom comes with age, or we like to think so, and clarity of what you see as unfolded. And some of the worst times that you had ended up being some of the best times because they prepared you for something else. Where I am in terms of living my intention now is, as you read in the bio, I'm very focused on trying to bridge this gap of statistics of where women are playing in leaderships in roles in the world. And we could go into lots of descriptions to why that is driven. But that is, for me, is very driven from a divine side. And what I mean by that is there's been a nudge that's come in many different forms. It said, this is what I have, all these years, these decades of where I've walked and the different roles that I've played and the different businesses I've had, the corporate structures, all these different things have prepared me to be one of the people that makes a move, the changes where we don't have but 4.8% of women CEOs, or we only have 2% of women businesses that are over $1 million. And the stats go on and on and on. And to be honest with you, I've really fought that because, as I shared with you earlier, I have pretty much all my life worked in a man's world. I have a very alpha male side to myself, so I'm very comfortable in that arena. And to move over and make women, it's the main people that I interact with. I have fought that a lot, still find it very frustrating, but I keep getting brought back to it. And it's the kind of thing, it's kind of a cliche, but if not me, then who? So
that's very interesting. And I've experienced that in my personal life too, with some of the women in my life that they have learned to work in that masculine environment. And because of that, that's where their comfort level lives. What's helping you move into really bringing the divine feminine of you into this work?
Well, it's, and I say that I fought this. It's interesting because I have 4 different companies that I run, and one of my companies that I've had for 20 some years caters to 100% women. So you think that I'd be very comfortable in that arena, but in that arena, I've never had to. It's a business, so I've never had to give a lot of myself. I orchestrate it. It's a retail spa type thing, and I get the employees, and I've learned how to manage all that, and so on and so forth. But the thing I'm doing now requires a lot of me, a lot of deep parts of me, because now I'm taking all of these learnings that I have and trying to and package those in a way that I can teach other women so they don't spend 30, 40 years learning it, and they don't stub their toe, and they don't make the mistakes and the pain that I've had to go through. And so you say, well, what keeps you moving in that direction? Everybody that works with me in my programs, I follow them. It's probably the engineer side of me. So I almost take them as a case study, and I want to see what happens with them, and I, create data on them and so on and so forth. And when I see the tremendous changes that are possible when women learn certain skills and they realize, and then I see what can happen when men are not the enemy, but are just a partner in this leadership of leading the world, and that there is a way to bridge those two strong forces. That keeps me going. I'm thinking, okay, I'll live to fight another day.
That's awesome what you shared with us, because as we look at your career and what's happened, you talked about just a few seconds ago of being able to bring your knowledge of working with men and your knowledge of being in that environment together with your understanding of the women that you're working with. So you're bringing so much of what you learned in the past into your present. And that's what I really tried to get across to the imagination is there are no mistakes in your life. And the gifts and talents that you develop as you're coming up along the way and as you're experiencing life in each and every circumstance is leading you, as I said earlier, to where you are right now. So it's so powerful that you can bring that knowledge and understanding of the masculine world, right, wrong, or indifferent. That's the way it was. But now, we're bringing things together in a way that, you don't have to be the alpha male anymore to run a company. But you do have to understand the alpha male world because you're still working through those processes that have been built over time. So awesome answer. It's right there showing people that, every little bit of part of your life brings something into your now.
And something that I try not to lose sight of along that journey, Vince, and hopefully your listeners will take this to heart, is when things happen to you along the way, if you can take an attitude of, why is this happening to me? What am I to learn from this? You're able to move through it and come out on the other side stronger. But if you move through those difficult times, which we all have, and you say, oh, woe is me, and what the heck have I done to deserve this? If you take that attitude, then the experiences don't build you into a stronger person. They don't build you for the purpose that you were born here to do. And just that slight perspective shift changes everything. Everything.
Yeah, you
do
bet.
You agree with that?
I do, 100%. Speaking of that, of how things open you up, how things lead you into the world that you're in, as long as you're willing to learn from it, as long as you're willing to grow from it. Tell me about one of your wake-up calls. You already mentioned that you've had some health issues in the past. Were those wake-up calls that kind of opened you up to your possibilities and gave you a little push?
They certainly have given me a wake-up call about my health and how, if without the health and vitality, wealth means nothing. So health and wealth are so connected. If you've got your health, then you can create wealth. If you've got wealth and don't have your health, it don't mean anything. So that was, that's a good anchoring point for me as I've moved through my life. I'll share one thing that was probably a wake-up call for me that took me in a different direction in my entrepreneur world, which has led me to what I'm doing now. In corporate, as you and I shared before we got on the call together, I spent 20 years of my early career in a corporate setting. Now, I had some businesses on the side as well, but I was a fast mover in corporate, fast track, highest paid woman in corporate, a lot of management roles. And the last management role I had, so I was interacting with the VPs of the company, the presidents of the company, this kind of thing. The last management role I had, I was managing pretty good sized R&D group. And I had one of my male engineers, master engineers, obsess on me. And it ended up moving to a point where he brought a loaded gun into the workplace. And it completely rocked my world. I was so, as anyone would be, I'm sure, were so frightened by it, astounded by it, didn't know what to do with it, that kind of thing. So that situation was handled. And a couple of weeks later, I was called to the corporate office by the VP of technology, who I reported to, and said that the president of the company wanted to meet with me. And I was so pleased because I thought this was, they're going to see how can we help you move through this? You've been traumatized, blah, blah, blah. Instead, it was something completely different. I was called into the president's office with the corporate attorney and the VP of human resources. And for 2 hours, I was drilled as to how could I let this happen? What did I do to make this happen?
Wow.
And it was a major turning point. I made it through that meeting. I was driving back to the Philadelphia airport. I remember when I got in my car and started driving, I started crying so hard I couldn't see to drive. So I pulled off of Interstate 95. And it was like a divine voice said, you just experienced the ultimate in intimidation. And it was a major turning point for me, major. So I went back, I put things in place to leave the corporate scene. I completely stepped out of the corporate scene all the way and went in a different direction with my companies and started my own companies doing a variety of things. So that put me on a completely different path. And that was one of those wake-up calls that said, this is not the game you thought you were playing. You're not one of the old boys network, no matter what you think.
Really a combination of two wake-ups there. First of all, just the fact that, somebody brought a gun into the environment is an attention getter. And then to realize that, maybe this isn't the environment that I want to live my life in and I want to share my gifts in because I'm not being supported. So, wow, amazing.
So that was a big one.
One of the interesting things I find about you, Annette, as I was doing research and the time that I've had opportunity to spend with you, tell me and the audience a little bit about how you bring science-based research into your work.
Well, okay, that I've got this science background, so that certainly is the lens of what I look at things from. I certainly can get over to the softer side, but I always will consider the data as well. So as I have put together the programs to move the needle on what's happening between men and women in leadership in our country and across the world, you can't ignore the science-based studies. So I spend, for anything that I do, I take my own playbook of what I believe to be true from my own experience, and then I challenge it. So I will dig into research studies that have been done by all kinds of neuroscientists, psychologists, whatever they might be, and I'll go and read those. And then I'll compare to what do they tell me, and how does that connect with my real world experience? And the beauty of that is it gives me a level of understanding that many people don't have, because to read them is one thing, to live it and experience it and be able to bring that full circle back around is a totally different thing.
I know some of that science research that you've done is on quantum physics. What's your favorite quantum topic to bring into your studies?
You and I have had some interesting discussions. I think I told you early upon our meeting that I'm probably one of the few people that you would meet that has a book of quantum theory laying by their bed that they read at night. But I guess for me, the thing that I bring into my work is trying to remind people, you have to frame it in a way, because if they haven't read the books, they don't get. You have to be very careful with the words that you use. But I bring it down to a very basic point, saying that what I want you to realize that everything that you look at around you is energy. And if you can come from a place, and you can show them some Hubble telescope images that just blows people's minds of what that has sent back to us, challenging everything that we believe. And if you can start to get your arms around that everything around us is energy, now you can start to make sense out of how your thoughts can impact how that energy manifests itself, and how it can truly set the course of things that are happening here and in other places in the world. So for my work, realizing that, I have taken my approach of what I'm doing with women and looking at being the kindling for the fire. Start a little fire, knowing that in the world of quantum theory, that little fire, that little tiny fire burning, if it's channeled right, can become a huge blaze.
Awesome.
And I believe that. Sometimes your rational mind gets in the way, and you think, the self-talk that starts to go on.
Lots of voices in our heads, for sure.
Most of them don't serve us too well, but anyway.
So our definition of miracle is through an act of love, sharing your gifts and talents with the world so others can share theirs. Can you give us an example of some of the work that you're doing, and one or maybe even two of the people that you work with, how they're bringing their gifts to the world now that they've been through your programs?
Yeah, I can. I can think of several, but let me share one woman with you first. Her name is Dr. Cherie, and when she is a board certified physician who has, like, I often laugh talking about a driven individual. It's like 17 initials behind her name. So she is, certified out the wazoo. And she developed breast cancer when she was 40. And at the same time lost her mother. And you just having lost a parent, you know how that just completely pulls a rug out from under you somewhat. And the cancer treatment left some damaging lymphedema in her body, which I didn't know what that was before. But for those of you listening that don't know, when you remove the lymph nodes that are associated with breast cancer, it causes this condition that where your arms and hands swell, where you lose the use of them. Well, the type of physician she was required her hands to be used all the time in her work, and she was no longer able to practice medicine in what she had learned to do. So as you can imagine, it just rocked her world. It completely, just devastated her. So she went on, and when I first met her, she had developed a foundation called Live Today. And it was focused on her purpose. Her vision was that she wanted to show her love that she had of helping people through helping people learn how to address lymphedema and to how to come up with garments that were not so ugly and so devastating to a woman's self-esteem, but to come to something else. So when I met her, she was pulling this foundation together, trying to figure out. And since we have been working together, she has now realized that as she was trying to build this, she was coming from a place of being humble. The unfortunate part, she was asking men to help her because they're the ones that had the power and the money and run the companies that she needs to help support this foundation as she gets it off the ground. And when she was coming across as being humble, she was coming across as being insecure and they didn't know, they didn't take her seriously. It's basically what happened. And so once we worked together and she came much more forward with what she wanted and how she communicated it, within 3 months, everything changed. She had 4 companies fighting over who was going to support her foundation. She got her own TV show in Chicago that's being funded by a grant where she gets on and talks about Live Today and supports education and blah, 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 blah. So there's an example of something where through what I was doing, and that kind of story keeps me going, because she has so much love to give to the world, so much knowledge, and is wanting to make such a difference in people's lives, and is driven from a place of generosity and a good heart and a good Christian heart. And if I hadn't moved in and been able to help her, she would have struggled.
Wow.
So
very
maybe
good
that's
story.
where the dots connect that we don't know about.
Yeah,
right?
For sure. Great story. Story. And I'm sure what she's bringing to the world is so powerful. I'd like to take your last 2 answers, put them together to ask you this next question.
Okay.
So you just mentioned that Dr. Cherie wants to make a difference in the world, really has so much to bring, is coming from a loving and caring place. I'm talking to somebody else that's coming from that exact same place. So you're those three things too. I'm sure that's why you attracted her into your life. And then also you mentioned energy. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to bring the collective energy of the imagination together, such a powerful energy, to help you create the next step that you would like to step into in making the difference in the world and really bringing who you are to the world. So is there anything coming up? I really prefer something that nobody else knows about yet, so we can kind of announce it here, but something that you got coming up in your business, in your life, that we could put the energy, the collective energy of the imagination into.
Perhaps. If I was to, okay, so can I precurse this with a couple of sentences before I
Certainly, yes.
All right, so a woman that I know that's very powerful, she's now 76. She's been a powerhouse her whole career. One of these women that when she walks in the room, she just gains everybody's attention. She gives off so much good energy and so much power and strength and self-assuredness and such. And I've been honored enough to have her as a friend for a while. And I got in a down place about 2 weeks ago thinking, why am I doing this? Starting to question my mission and the miracle that I'm trying to make happen. And called her, and she said to me, why are you doing this? You're not going to move. You're not going to change anything. You're not going to move the world. You're not, and these women, you're not going to be able to make anything. They are where they want to be, And I said, okay. And then she said, are you doing this for the money? And I said, no, I'm okay financially. I don't need the money. I'm not, I live within my means. That's not the driver. She said, well, are you doing it for your ego? Do you want to be recognized and have people know your name and all that? And I said, no, I'm an introvert. I don't know. That's not really what I want either. She said, then what do you want? And I said, Barbara, too much is given, much is expected. And I said, I have been given a lot. And I said, if I don't do it, who's going to do it? And her reaction was, oh, that's heavy. So with that precursing my comment, I guess if I was to ask for collective energy, it would be for me to have the right people come into my life and cross my path that can make this journey not so much easier, but more productive, even more productive. I have been blessed with having the right people show up at the right time, but I need more of them. And I want to be ready for it, because I think what comes to us comes when we're ready. And sometimes you have to do a little self-searching to make sure that it's the old thing, if you can handle $1,000, you'll be given $1,000. If you only can handle $1, you only get $1. So it's that kind of phenomena. So I guess the energy would be for the miracle to be for me to be the person that is ready to handle what is needed and the people to come along to give me the support that I need to be able to grow into this. What I think I'm meant to do, not because I want to do it, but I think I'm meant to do it.
Oh, I understand the I am meant to do it. Sometimes that pull is so hard and not even understandable to ourselves on the pull. So we're going to send that collective energy to help you get to that energetic place, that the energy that you're putting out through the law of attraction attracts those people back to you that are there to help you walk your walk. And I'm sure in that they're going to find ways to walk theirs also.
I hope so. That's what I would wish for them as well.
Well, in the quantum world that we both believe in, we know that that's how energy works. So we're sending it your way. Couple lightning round type questions. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I've ever received. Don't worry about what other people think, because we lose a lot of energy and a lot of creativity. We get caught up into that. And probably the second one is, it's a very practical one. Don't live beyond your means. If you try to, and you have to be careful with that one, because that can be interpreted that, stay in your place type thing. And that's not how I take that. I take that is grow into each place, be willing to stretch, but don't act like you're somebody that you aren't, or don't try to be somebody that you aren't ready to be yet.
Wow, that's excellent advice. Super. What's your favorite inspirational quote?
Well, they're probably going to be, well, it depends. Okay. So if you go to a general thing, one by Eleanor Roosevelt that says, a woman is like a tea bag. You never know how strong she is until she's in hot water. I love that one because I think that's true of all people, but I can see Eleanor Roosevelt saying that right now. From a spiritual standpoint, probably the scriptures in the Bible that reminds you that if you believe in a higher force, and for me is a living God, but for whatever higher force you relate to and believe in, that with that by your side, anything's possible. And things like, what I've already told you, too much is given, much is expected. I like that quote. I find it burdensome, but I find it anchoring.
Oh, that's very true. I never looked at it in both aspects of it. But it's very true that it can be anchoring. But it is a burden knowing that there's so much that you have to offer the world, and you should be out there offering it. And I encourage everybody in the imagination, you're here for a mission. You're here for a divine intent. You truly have a purpose, and the world needs you. It really does. And I need you. So as Annette said, it is burdensome when you've been given so many gifts, but they're there to share, not to hold on to.
Right.
Can you give us one parting piece of advice or guidance where we've actually been together for over 30 minutes, believe it or not? And I could talk on forever, but we have to call it a day here. Could you give us a piece of parting advice?
Probably the biggest thing that I would remind your audience that we all need to be reminded of is that don't let fear be what controls your life. There's an element of that is given to us genetically for fear, that to keep us from hurting ourselves and remembering things. But we also need to remember that fear is not the way. It just holds you back. It keeps you living in scarcity. It doesn't allow you to experience the fullness of life. And when you're afraid, do it anyway.
Oh, excellent advice. How can the people in the imagination get in touch with you or learn more about you?
They can go to my website, which is Annette Comer, spelled ANNETTECOMER.com. And they can learn a little bit about me there. There's ways there, some freebie stuff there they can learn that can up-level some of their own journey. And then they can also, if they want to send me a personal email, they just can send it to support and my name again, AnnetteComer.com. And it'll get to my desk eventually, and I'll make sure that I reach out to them personally.
Perfect. All that information is going to be available to you on the show page. All you have to do is go to themiracleu.com, look for Annette's episode, and all that information will be available on the show page. Annette, I was so happy that we could put this together, especially on such short notice. I really appreciate you being a part of the Miracle You, and more importantly, I appreciate you and what you're bringing to the world.
Thank you, Vince, and I applaud you for what you're doing, and I continue to see much success as you move along this path. I have no doubt.
Thank you very much. On behalf of Mary and myself, we want to wish you a miracle day.
You've completed this episode of The Miracle You, but we have plenty more to help you discover your own personal passion and purpose. Head over to themiracleu.com for free resources to assist you on your journey, as well as register for our free webinar, Discover Your Miracle Life, 3 Mind Awakening Steps Toward Your Unique Purpose, or apply for a one-on-one Your Life, Your Way breakthrough session and discover your next best step on your journey. All available exclusively on our website. That's themiracleu.com. We look forward to sharing more experiences of passion, purpose, and life by design next time, right here on The Miracle You.